Hey, everyone out there. This is Jeff Horowitz with Dennis in the Know. We are out with and talk about everything that's going on in the dental world. You see, my partners and I, we put this little thing together during COVID, and we said, let's not be bored while the whole world is shut down. Let's bring the dental world together. Let's have the dental manufacturers. Let's have the dental laboratories. Let's have the dentists. And finally, let's have the consumers all talking to each other so everybody knows what's going on in the dental world. So that's what this is about. This is Hump Day Happy Hour with Dennis in the Know, and this is our consumer-facing episode. So again, Dr. Chad Duplantis, Dr. Jennifer Bell, and myself, we've all dedicated ourselves and our Wednesdays to bringing the dental world together. We are all practicing dentists, we are all educators, and we are all practice owners. And our job is to bring everyone out there in the know. So, guys, welcome to Hump Day Happy Hour. JB and Chad, how are y'all tonight?
Doing fantastic. How you doing, Jeffro?
Yeah, I'm doing good. So for those that don't know us that well, this started over COVID, and we were so bored that we said, let's get together on Wednesday night, do a Hump Day Happy Hour, have a cocktail, and talk dentistry and how to promote the profession. So what are y'all drinking tonight? Because I've done something special tonight, and I want to see if any of you can guess what I'm drinking.
Hold it in the center of the screen. And turn it around.
Is that a freaking White Russian?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
The Dude. I'm going the Dude tonight. Yes.
I'm impressed.
I'm going
the
Dude.
My husband drinks a White Russian.
You know
My biggest problem is I'm lactose intolerant.
That could make the show really interesting in about 20 minutes.
Yeah. Chad, hey, did y'all see this week when Shaq was doing a sports show and literally got up in the middle of the show and kind of said, I gotta go right now?
No.
Is that true?
That happened this week. Got up live on set, walked off, shimmied off stage and said, I'm sorry. I'm just sorry.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's real life, we've all been. Can we talk about this? Because I do think this is a really nice segue.
Probably not a good idea.
Totally. No, we're going there because
JB, there's a real affinity for this kind of talk for you. I can see that.
Absolutely. Because it's real. No. So first off, I want to preface this by saying I had a friend in dental school who used to talk about his dentist growing up. He joked about the fact that he always seemed to time his appointment right after lunch, and he had a little bit of a bigger belly. And so his belly was sitting right by his ear, and he could hear the inner workings of what was going on
in the tumbly.
Yeah, in his body. Yeah. So first I want to say, to the public out there, we're aware, we know what's happening in our bodies. There's not a darn thing we can do about it. I was pregnant for 3 durations. Years. I have 3 kids. And I used to think, God, what does it sound like if my baby gets really close to their face and you can actually see my stomach starting to push out and get really close to touching them? Do you guys have an embarrassing story or know of an embarrassing story, or at least help patients understand the fact that we're very aware that sometimes it just gets real and that we're all in each other's very intimate spaces, right?
I think that the best that I could share with you is that intermittent fasting is not really for dental patients whose dentist is intermittently fasting, because there will be a lot of funky noises coming out of the stomach if you haven't eaten in,
yes,
12, 15 hours. So So yes, I do think that it's real, and I mean, I'm guilty of my stomach growling with patients in the chair, and I
100%.
always say something and
Well, and their
apologize. But
face is at your belly. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no two ways about it.
but it happens.
I'm gonna tell two funny
Uh-oh.
stories then, since y'all don't have any dirt to give. I'll give you two. Number one, I had a dental hygienist one time who came in. She was giggling and she said, I was just working on this patient and my belly was going bonkers, making all kinds of crazy noises. And finally, I knew he could hear it. I could hear, like, it was loud. I'm pretty sure they heard it in the hallway. And I finally said, I am so sorry that my stomach's making all these noises. It seems like maybe I need to eat. And he goes, no, I think maybe you need to take a shit. And then
Oh my god!
and he was like, I mean, maybe, I don't know. Like, if you've got 10 minutes, I'll go check it out and I'll give you a full report when I get back. Anyway, totally called her out on it. The second is my own personal story. As a kid, I was getting a gooey impression taken for whatever something. And for everybody watching, you know how like helpless you feel when a dentist puts that big tray of gunk in the roof of your mouth or, whatever. And you're sort of stuck there. You're breathing. Hopefully, if you can breathe through your nose, you can breathe through your nose, right? Luckily, now we have digital impressions, so we avoid a lot of that uncomfortableness. So it was right after lunch. The impression went in. I definitely got crop dusted by the dental assistant in the room. And it was a little pungent. And I am helpless. Like, you can't leave. You can't not breathe through your nose. You're just soaking it all in. And I knew some of the people that worked there. And I came out after, I was like, I just got crop dusted. And like, I experienced the full bouquet of whatever it was that she had for lunch. I got to experience all of it. I couldn't leave. I couldn't breathe out my mouth. I couldn't cover myself.
Was that the Nachos Royale?
Yes, it probably was Mexican. Anyway, because that was a common staple cuisine that we did there. So anyway, I know the pain of the patient. And sometimes, guys, I'm sorry. It's human. Things happen. A bad lunch goes down. It's going to go somewhere.
So this is great. I got two stories that I'll share with you too. One of them's kind of related. One of them's not necessarily related. Could y'all hear me or did I cut out?
No, you're there.
What's your name?
Okay. Whatever. No, it's like StreamYard's doing some funny things. I mean, occasionally. So anyhow, dental school. We had this instructor in orthodontics. His name was Dr. Robert Biggerstaff. JB, did you know him? He was a UNC guy.
No, but one of my really good friends was Biggerstaff.
That is his son.
I'm sorry. Did you?
Was it a gentleman?
Yeah.
That was his son. Went to UNC?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's his son. Okay, so
What?
Dr. Biggerstaff taught us in San Antonio, and
I gotta fact check this now with Chad, but go ahead.
Yeah. So, anyways,
Other Chad.
Biggerstaff used to always talk about alginate, and he'd be like, "You want your alginate to be a smooth and creamy consistency." And he'd work it and so anyways, and the thing is like he always told us, he's like, you place that tray in the patient's mouth, and what we're talking about to our consumer patients is the gooey stuff you put in the patient's mouth. Let me tell you something. If you're gagging, it ain't coming out because it's going to make it worse. All right. And he was like, you place it in there and you leave it until it sets and then you take it out. So we're doing pediatric dentistry. We're doing orthodontic expander on this kid. And I throw the alginate in there and the kid starts gagging. And he's kind of doing this number, right? And so I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm going to have to leave it in there. Just hang tight for a minute. And at that point in time, I'm like, you know what? If it's coming up on me. So this kid lets it loose. And you would think that a lot came out, but not a lot came out. However, one thing did come out in its entirety. a half of a freaking hot dog shot out of this kid's mouth into my other hand. All right. And
No.
I'm holding
No.
this hot dog, and his mom's sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and the kid's like fine at that point in time. And I looked at the mother and I go, well, we're going to get an impression. But the other thing is your kid needs to learn how to chew, because he swallowed half of his freaking hot dog and I just caught it 2 hours ago. So yes, there are horror stories like that. But here's my favorite story ever of dental practice. And it doesn't have to deal with farts or poop or pee or anything like that. However, if you've ever sat in a dental chair and you look to the left, you usually, unless your dentist is left-handed, it might be to the right. But if you look to the left, there's a bunch of hand pieces and water syringes and cords hanging off of a tray, right? So several years ago, we were hiring an assistant, and we had this young lady that applied, and her name was Sissy. And her previous job was that she was a model for Skull Copenhagen. And so we're like, all right, two things going for this young lady. Her name is Sissy, and she was a model for dentist's worst nightmare, snuff. We have got to get her in and interview her. So we get her in, we interview her, we hire her. She was probably one of the best assistants we've ever had. I just saw her in the office this week. Sissy, if you're listening, we still love you. Sissy brought her mother-in-law in this week. But anyway, Sissy was in the assistant's chair and I was in my chair. And the patient's sitting there, and all of a sudden, we're working on the patient. The patient goes, ow, and holds their head. And we're like, what the hell's going on? And then next thing you know, a few seconds later, the patient goes, ow, and holds their head again. And the patient looks at me and they go, could you stop that damn tray from hitting my head? And I look over at Sissy, and she's in her assistant's chair. And I'm like, Sissy, could you stop moving around? Every time you move, the tray moves and it hits the patient in the head. And she looks at me and she goes, okay. A few seconds later, the patient goes, gosh. Tray hits the head again, and I look, and one of those cords was wrapped around my stool, and every time my stool moved, it grabbed the tray, popped the patient in the head, and Sissy looks at me, she goes, it's not me, and I'm like, that's all on me,
It's
folks.
me.
Sorry. Yeah, it's
That'll
me.
teach
It's
ya.
me.
Fully me. So there you go. Those are my two stories. Jeff, you have to have two.
So, well, now favorite story is not pee, not poop, not vomit, none of the above. But my favorite story,
That's only me.
and
That's my repartee.
yeah. Well, this was early in my career, and I had just a sweet little old lady, and she came in, and I know both of you have heard this story before, but it's one of my favorites. And Cindy, who's been my assistant for 30 years now, she
Hannah's
remembers
mother-in-law,
vividly.
Cindy?
What's that?
Hannah's mother-in-law, Cindy?
No, Cindy. My
Who's
Cindy,
Hannah's
my
mother-in-law? Oh, never mind. Go ahead. Carry
Okay.
on. Carry on.
no. That's Katie.
Okay.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Anyway, so this sweet little old lady's in there. She's coming in. She wants to get a new denture made. And, I just had this little routine where I would always say, now I'm going to run my finger alongside your gum. I just want to feel for, any bone spicules and just make sure that, we're not going to run into any trouble with your new denture. And I looked this little old lady in the eyes and I just said, now I'm going to run my tongue right alongside your tongue here. And you just tell me if you feel anything. And I didn't even know what I had said. And my assistant just looks up at me. And then the patient looks up at me. And, I was a strapping young, like 26-year-old or 27-year-old at the time. So she was interested. Like she liked this proposition. The patient did. My assistant didn't think so much of it. And then when I realized what I had said, I'm like, oh my God. What did I just
What
say?
have I done?
I've literally been in
did
practice for 2 years.
Did you or no?
No, I did not, by the way. I
Okay,
did
okay,
not ever
okay.
run my
All right,
tongue
it's good.
alongside her tongue.
It's good to
Yeah.
have clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
to have
Well,
clarity. Yeah.
Boundaries are important for dentists too, I think.
I think so. It's got many
Yeah.
of us in trouble.
I'd agree.
All right. Well, what
All
do
right,
we
boys,
have in
so-
store?
Tonight, it's a new format for us, I think. I want to try something different. Are you game?
Of course.
I'm
Jeff?
game.
Okay. Yes. All right. So
I'm game.
tonight's, huh? Tonight's
I
show
don't
is
think anybody
about
said anything,
dental.
Dave.
Why does he keep talking? Anyway, tonight's show is about dental tourism. For the audience's sake, let me just define that, meaning leaving your own geography to go somewhere else to pursue care. Now, I got to push the boundary here to say that could mean anywhere. That could mean domestic. I certainly have colleagues. We've had colleagues on the show who specialize in certain things that they're very good at, particularly cosmetic dentists or surgical dentists that are doing some really cool stuff, have a great social profile. They get a lot of tourism dentistry. So we have to think both domestically. People might leave your practice to go pursue a particular type of care from someone that they've seen in social media. Second, or a referral from a friend. Secondly, dental tourism beyond our borders, meaning pursuing dental and medical care in other countries. And this could be, there's been a lot of buzz around this lately. So I think this is a very relevant topic. So when we're discussing this tonight, we're going to keep both of those things in mind. Now, I thought it might be fun to do a healthy debate, right? So we're all dentists and we have opinions about what we think about tourism and medicine and what that looks like for our patients. And so we thought we would create this more in a debate scenario. And if you're open to it, guys, Chad, you'll be against dental tourism. Jeff, you'll be at least for or present the consumer justification for it. Now, at the end, we will give our own opinions. We will let you know what we really think. But I thought it would be healthy because in that moment, I think Chad and myself as the moderator and Jeff as the consumer could kind of work through some really interesting dialogue. So are you game?
I'm game.
I think we could do this.
Okay. Now, gentlemen, welcome to tonight's debate on dental tourism. Have you
Chad, you ignorant slut.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to be here. It's good to be here.
You want me to set the stage?
Do it.
Okay. So this week, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen this in their own communities, but this week on one of our local pages, I noticed something that really just struck a chord with me. And it's a post from a resident in the area that says, I've seen several people post the last few weeks that they are looking for a dentist to get dental work done. For anyone who has been on the fence on having dental work done in Mexico, do it. We flew out yesterday afternoon. My fiance and I came back December of last year to get work done, and we felt safer in blank Mexico versus New York City. The people are so nice and friendly. There are lots of horror stories about going there for work, but I can tell you of even more horrors in the United States. I personally have a few through the years. I saved 80% on my dental work today than I would have paid back in the good old US of A. The work I had done would have cost me about $5,000 to $6,000 at my local dentist. They had state-of-the-art equipment, better than anything I've ever seen in the States. Very nice and clean facilities. Now I just wish it wasn't so far so that I could go all the time. You fly into San Diego, drive 2.5 hours. Only one thing you'll have to pay for is your flight and your rental car. They will pay for your hotel while you are visiting. And this really just struck a chord with me because this also happened to be from a local business owner. And I really wondered what they would think if we decided to utilize their services elsewhere other than right here at home. So I found it interesting and I thought it'd be something to debate tonight.
So it's interesting, Chad, because I think we all know people in our circles that have gone off and done something like that, whether it be, gastric procedures, which, a lot of people have gone off for medical tourism to have gastric sleeve or gastric bypass. A lot of people certainly go off for cosmetic surgeries. And now what we're seeing is cosmetic dentistry. So, because I've been tasked with speaking on behalf of the consumer, let's just throw out what all the pros are. The pros are obviously just what this person said. It is much cheaper. Why it's cheaper, I think that's really for you to argue, Chad. I'm going to leave that to your side, but it is much cheaper. That's probably the biggest thing that I can say, not to mention that a lot of times we can also tie in some kind of a vacation alongside of the work. So, we all think of dentistry in a negative light. So, what if we could be in Europe somewhere? What if we could be in Turkey and Croatia and the Greek islands and then happen to work in 8 veneers while we're there? And oh, by the way, it's 75% cheaper than it is in the United States. I mean, it's hard to argue with somebody that this is the wrong thing to do. Can we say that those dentists are unqualified? No, we cannot.
Absolutely not. No.
Absolutely. Because a lot of these are dentists who are probably American trained, or if not American trained, certainly, high-end cosmetically or functionally trained. So, we really don't have that argument. We just don't know. I think where the question is, and where I would anticipate an argument, is what happens in the treatment planning and aftercare process. But certainly, I think they're qualified dentists. I think the cost is right. And the ability to combine that with something that the entire family can be a part of and to have a new experience. I think we can't just only speak badly of this.
JB,
Chad?
you want, okay. So, I'll go. So I think that, one of the biggest things that we always joked about from dental school is, let's say, hey, I did X, Y, or Z in dental school. Well, was it successful? Absolutely it was. Well, how do you know that? Because I graduated. I have no idea what the hell's going on.
Geographic success.
So my point is that we sometimes have geographic and situational successes, right? So
Sure.
I think that there's a lot of things, and we're in a border state. I see a lot of work that comes back, and I've seen a lot of work that comes back from Mexico just because we're so close to Mexico. I've seen good work, I've seen bad work. And honestly, I know a lot of the dentists that practice in Mexico because a lot of them were trained at dental schools within Texas. And there's going to be good and bad anywhere you go. There is going to be good and bad anywhere you go. That goes for Keller and Fort Worth, Texas, too. There's going to be good and there's going to be bad. It goes for Conway, South Carolina, Jeff Horowitz, and it goes for Raleigh, North Carolina, Dr. Jennifer Bell. And so, there's going to be good work everywhere you go, and there's going to be bad work everywhere you go. How do we know? And it's all based upon reviews, right? But there's so many things that come up throughout this process that we really, really need to look into. And I think there's also some problems that can occur after the fact. And where is the continuity of care?
Well, and I think I'll jump in as this arbitrator, but I think that is a really big, important part, because I think I can argue from a general dentist perspective, I wish that everything I did never came back.
Absolutely.
I wish I never did a bite adjustment or had a patient in pain afterwards or a negative consequence or things didn't go the way we hoped, or shade match wasn't right, margin didn't fit, whatever it happens to be. I wish that I have patients who could come in, get a diagnosis, come back, get a plan in place, have treatment in a short period of time, and I never had to manage any of that again. But the reality of being a general dentist is the quarterback of your dental team is that is definitely not how our relationships go. And I actually 99% of the time enjoy and appreciate that journey with patients, that we can have challenges, we can work through issues that pop up, and then we can find resolution. But who's there for them when they leave Turkey, Europe, Mexico, India, China, wherever they're coming from in dental tourism? I actually had some from Syria as well. Who's there for them if they return back to the US to service that dentistry and to take care of it? And my additional point would be, a lot of times the materials that I see are not the same as what we use in the US. And so then, like, mitigating how to support some of that stuff when it's not even materials that you're very familiar with. You don't know the caustic issues that are associated with those. There was a root canal material that was done, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago in Europe and parts of Russia, Eastern Bloc, and that area. And it,
Sargenti paste.
Exactly. And
It
it's
was here too.
well, and but
Yeah.
it had a bigger, I think, use case out there. And so you'll see those and like, you can't open it up. But the average young doctor who's never encountered that before wouldn't actually know that. They wouldn't look at that and go, oh, that might be Sargenti's paste, and this could be a real problem for the patient as well as myself. And, anyway, my point is there are lots of very weird nuances that start to come up. And even when I do dentistry, let's say I'm doing a veneer case or I'm taking out thirds or whatever it happens to be, I'm like, please don't schedule a vacation within a certain time period of that. Please don't get on a plane. Please don't, blah, blah, blah. Because I want to be here to service you. If something's wrong, if there's an issue, if you're having pain, I want to be there to help you. And when you leave me, I can't do that anymore. So I'm not for or against, but these are definitely some of the challenges that come up when we pursue care outside of our borders and then return back, almost as if dentistry is a commodity. I can go to Walmart, buy a bag of potting soil, put it in my checked baggage, take the potting soil back to the US and use it as if it's potting soil the same everywhere else.
JB, not that, and again, not that I am for this.
You're the consumer supporting it.
Yeah, if I am speaking on behalf of the consumer, I will also say they have the ability to say, well, I like this person, and honestly, if I had to go back 2 or 3 times, even if I had to pay the airfare and take another little mini vacation, it was still cheaper than had I done it in the United States. And what do we say to that?
So I'm going to throw something out there that's maybe I don't disagree with you, but there's a lot that I can say.
Please disagree with me. This is a very hard argument for me to be taking.
He's a dentist, for goodness sake.
There's a lot that I could say regarding this, and I'll save one of my favorite stories for later. But I'm going to tell you this: in the United States, we're really good at certain things, but we're really bad at other things. So one of the things that I'm going to point out, I'm just going to throw out a question. I know for a fact, because I know you all very, very well, you're like brothers and sisters to me, that neither of you all have any artificial joints. However, if you have an artificial knee or you have an artificial hip, you're given a card, right?
Yeah.
It tells you exactly what the serial number is, what was placed. You know the brand. It's usually one of 3 brands. Let's take it a step further. If you have a pacemaker, you know who the manufacturer is. You know how to get a hold of somebody if something goes wrong with it. You have a freaking card that you carry in your wallet, and you probably hand it to TSA when you go through the airport, right? If you have a dental implant, this is where we suck in the United States.
We really do.
We have probably over 100 dental manufacturers of implants. That's on a conservative guesstimate. We have 100 different, not 100, but we probably have 15 to 20 different drivers. We have very unique and compatible screws for each of those implants. However, not one freaking patient that I have can tell you exactly what is in their jaw. All right. So I think in the
Agreed.
United States, we need an implant database, and we need to be more congealed as far as to what we're placing in these patients. And so patients are aware, and the following or ensuing doctor that the patient may have has an idea of what type of implant they have. And where I'm going with this is that if you, Joe Blow, were to come into my office with an implant and I have no information on it, I can go to a website that's called whatimplantisThat.com. And now with AI, we might be able to tell what type of implant it is, but quite honestly, it's still pretty hard. Now, my whole point with this is that buyer beware if you go to a foreign country and you get an implant, because that number that I just threw out there just grows exponentially. And there are implants that you have placed, and I can tell you, you mentioned a couple places, and I don't want to knock any country because I love all my brethren far and wide, but Turkey, Syria, Bosnia, I've had patients come back from implants and we have no idea what the hell it is. The issue falls in my lap and I'm expected to come up with a solution. And quite frankly, there is no solution. There's none. Go back to where you got it from. And quite frankly, there might not be a solution there either, because at least in the United States, it's very well regulated. I can't speak for other countries. I know in London, I mean, in Great Britain and Germany and Italy and in the larger countries where a lot of our products are actually manufactured, we do have a lot of regulations there. But in some of these countries, there's zero regulation whatsoever. And when you come over here with something, I had a dentist, an actual dentist come in with several implants that were placed in the Middle East, and they were furious that we didn't have the components to fix them here. And that's a true story. And so
if they're not FDA cleared in the United States, we can't even get the parts. I mean,
no,
that's
and it would be really, again, I'm not going to say illegal because that's a strong word, but it would be very probably unethical or questionable if we even get the parts and try to restore something that's not FDA cleared within the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my soapbox, and I'm off of it, but I got another story for later.
No, I think so. There's a great point that you made, both of you, JB, with regard to dental materials, which, may or may not be FDA cleared, and Chad with implants that may or may not be FDA cleared. That problem now becomes a geographical problem, because in the United States, you will never be able to have that fixed. And I know I'm supposed to be arguing on behalf of the consumer.
You're good.
All I can say is it was cheap to start with, but what are the expenses afterwards? And as Chad said earlier, who is taking responsibility for what happens afterwards? I mean, I'm going to tell you that if you have something done abroad and they're not tracking your progress afterwards, they don't know if you bit into a rock, or if, what's happened. And I'm sure if 5 years later you show up with a fractured crown to another country, what's going to happen? They're going to tell you, you have to pay us again. You're going to pay your airfare. You're going to, have to travel back over there again. And the whole idea about having a healthcare provider is having someone who knows your history, someone that understands your inherent risks for disease and knows how to help you mitigate those risks. That's how a lot of us are trained. It's not a commodity based profession where we say, okay, you want veneers? Here's veneers. Well, veneers can only get put in on patients who have teeth in the back that can actually support the veneers, where not too much pressure is being put on them that they're going to eventually fracture or debond. You want implants? Well, you need to be with a practitioner that understands that, we've got to know what your blood sugar levels are. We have to know that you're healthy enough. We have to know that there's no, pathogens in the gums, that there's not a lot of bacteria in the gums that could affect the outcome of the implants. There's just so much that goes into planning. And then on top of that, throwing in the wrench of, will they even have the materials and the supplies to fix a problem if it occurs? I don't get it. It's not a commodity.
All right, I'm going to take a different perspective here, because I think that we would all agree that dentistry could be less expensive if some of the regulatory issues, insurance, compressions in the marketplace, whatever's going on, the reason, let me take a step back. The reason that you care, the two of you as dentists, about your patients going to pursue care somewhere else is that you value them as people and you want to be able to give them the best care possible at a price they can afford. And frankly, I think we all agree it sucks sometimes sitting in front of a patient, talking to them about procedures that are available for a particular type of condition, and you're sort of ballparking what you think those things are going to cost. And you already know certain things are off the table simply because they can't afford it. Certain things are on the table because they can. And it sucks as a doctor because you know what the best outcome is, yet we're having to negotiate alternative plans because of finances. I get it. That's the reality. My counterpoint to both of you would be that in the US, to be able to provide the best dental care in the world, and I will stand behind that 100%, why does it have to be so expensive? Why does it have to be in a compression bubble that doctors are having to push that back to the consumer to say we can't do it? Why does it have to cost $500,000 for someone to be educated? Why does it have to cost them $500,000 a year in salary for the support team around them? Why does it have to cost $250,000 to $400,000 a year just to have cotton rolls in the office? Like, at the end of the day, it's the doctor has set a percentage that they need to make in order to pay their bills and be able to pay their mortgage. That honestly, that's it. Anything above and beyond that is gravy. And they have a ton of flexibility in that scenario. If we could just work on the 75 or 80% that the doctor has to pay to get to that point, or the reduction in fees and things that come from the insurance company to get to that point, I think you would see actually doctors also coming to the table to say, we would love to be able to provide an implant for you at $2,000 because I can then purchase my FDA approved implant for X amount. I only have to pay the team X amount. My insurance company is going to pay me, reimburse you full fee for that, just like they do for medicine. Like, at the end of the day, then you can get the dentistry that you deserve. And we can be able to be the ones to provide that for you. Instead of you feeling as a consumer the compression to leave the US to go get that implant that you really, really want. But when Chad, Jeff, and I sit down and say, it's $5,500 for an implant, it's $250 to take the tooth out, it's $4,000 for a bridge, it's this, that, and the other. And you're like, I can't afford any of those things. But if I go overseas, it's a $600 plane ticket and I can get my implant for $400, like, you know, consumers are looking at the real math of it going, it's at least worth consideration. So the reason,
Godspeed, and I wish you the best. And the thing is that you might get a great implant overseas.
Yeah, I don't know. But my point is we haven't, as doctors, but as an industry of really gigantic players in the market, we've created this compression to the consumer to have to choose.
And we also, when you have work done in the United States, you're paying for all of the rules and regulations that
100%.
And that's why I was pointing at you a minute ago. You said FDA. I mean, you're paying for all the hoops that we have to jump through to be dentist within the United States. And you have to realize that in order for us to become dentists in the United States, we undergo a lot of education, which is not cheap. I mean, you know, we're finding that dental students are coming out of dental school with greater than, and this is a conservative estimate, greater than $500,000 in debt. I mean, I've heard to the tune of $760, close to $800,000 in debt to become a dentist. Your dentist in the United States went through a lot to be able to provide quality care to you. And, you know, I can speak for the three of us, and I can speak for a lot of our colleagues. We bust our butts and we focus on education, not just in dental school, but beyond dental school, to be able to provide and be the best that we can possibly be. Now, that's not to say that somebody in another country is not doing that. I mean, there are great dentists everywhere, and once again, there are bad dentists everywhere too. You know, but there's just there's a lot that we need to take into consideration, and I think also if you go out of the country, and we talked 2 weeks ago, roughly a few weeks ago, our last consumer facing episode, we spoke about dental insurance. You go out of the country, that ain't going to help you. You know, I mean, it'd be a win-win if you got to go down there and spend that little amount of money and get your dental insurance. Whoa, that'd be great. So,
but to JB's point, you know, a lot of this has to do with opportunity. I mean, why do prescription medications made by American manufacturers get to be sold in other countries for so much less than those same prescriptions are sold for here in the United States, where they are actually manufactured and not having to be shipped? And it's because there is opportunity. It is what the market will permit. And unfortunately, you know, I mean, I always joke around. I was like, you know, this is a hammer. This hammer is $7.99. If I label this a dental hammer and sell it through a dental distributorship, that it becomes a $79.99 hammer now, because it is made for the dental industry. Now, again, I'm not putting blame on anyone. It's what the market has allowed. But accordingly, we have to set our prices based on the fact that 75 cents of every dollar that we take in is going to have to go right back out to cover the cost of doing business for the things that you mentioned, JB. So, you know, I don't know.
It's more in the 80s now, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I'm, you know, again, I'm just in just very general terms for everybody. You know, everybody thinks, oh, you know, dentist is charging me, you know, $1,600 for a crown. And, you know, I can't believe that they're sticking $1,600 in their pocket for the amount of time they spent with me. No, you know, actually, Yeah. Actually, for the amount of time that we spend, it is really a very normalized salary, if you broke it down on an hour by hour basis. So, especially after paying all the overhead costs that are there. And again, none of us want to gouge. I think we are all, we're all very committed to taking care of patients. We're all happy to make a good living. I don't think any of us want to be, none of us want to be known as the person who took advantage of anybody, or, that we didn't do anything, that we were working in a way that was not commensurate with the care that we've offered to somebody. I don't know. It's a tough situation. We charge what we have to charge. We set our fees by what we have to charge in order to make a living doing what we're doing. And yeah, it's sad that the opportunities are there for people to want to go abroad. And I do certainly see where people can be lured into that based on cost, but I also know, like Chad does, and like you do, JB, that we're going to see a lot of those problems afterwards, because even the best laid plans sometimes don't work, and not because it's anyone's fault, but because they're humans that the work is going into, and there are too many human factors on the outside that can impact that. And someone who sees you once or twice in a couple of weeks is really not going to always be the best judge of what those risks may be for a given patient.
I have to say, the reason I know why people think it bothers dentists that you go overseas or, pursue care elsewhere. Most of the dentists that I know, Jeff, Chad, correct me if I'm wrong, if a patient comes in, you give them your opinion of what they think they need to do, and they're like, yeah, I'm not 100% sure, or your price is too high, and they go somewhere down the street and meet with another colleague, and that colleague gives them their opinion and their price, and they pursue it, don't pursue it. I don't think most of us are super bent out of shape about that. I definitely don't get upset if people need to find the practice and the prognosis that works for them. Like I get that they have that autonomy as both a patient and a consumer of the procedure.
Absolutely.
But the inherent thing that I think comes through for dentists when they pursue care outside of the US is just what Chad said, and pretty much just what you said, Jeff. When you come in with a problem that we can't fix, it drives us freaking bonkers. Like, it strikes a chord that you can't even imagine, because we're problem solvers, we're type A, and we pursued this profession because we are driven to serve people. It's a terrible characteristic on most days of the week, but we want to pursue serving people. So when a patient comes in with a problem and we can't solve it, not because we don't do it, not because we don't understand it, but we actually cannot solve the problem, it is mind-numbingly frustrating. Like, either I don't understand how we got to this point, and now it's another $30,000 for me to undo the thing that you've just done. It's an implant manufacturer that I couldn't possibly get a part from anytime this century, so I cannot solve this for you. And we're left as that messenger. Like, I think that is intuitively contradictory to everything that we believe we are to patients, that we want to be, and that we have strived and educated ourselves to be. And so, to the consumers out there, this is what drives dentists nuts. We want to help you. We want to take care of you. And then when you give us something that we physically or mentally cannot solve, you might as well just fire us. Like, just take us out in pasture and shoot us, because That's what we were born to do, apparently, what we were trained to do. And we want to solve the problems, and it drives us crazy when we can't.
I think
So-
one other thing. Go ahead, Chad. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Because I kind of, when you go, please.
Well, I just, I go back to thinking, we are problem solvers. If we place an implant, the implant fails, the implant company makes us a promise that they will replace an implant that fails. We make a promise to the patient that we will provide the procedure to remove the failing implant and place the new implant, which the implant company has agreed to supply in the case of failure. And there's just no way for us to offer anything like that for a service that happens abroad, and especially if we don't know what it is to begin with. And I think maybe we don't do a good enough job of letting our patients know just how far we will have their back when they do commit to care with us. There's certainly some responsibilities that the patient needs to take, and there's responsibilities that the dentist needs to take. But I think maybe we don't do a good enough job of letting them know how much we are willing to do to assure the success of the care that we provide.
So I think that's a great message that you shared, and I think there's a lot that we've discussed tonight that's just so pertinent, and I hope that maybe somebody can take something away. But as we're getting towards the end, I kind of
somebody took a recipe for the White Russian away.
That's all they got from this show.
Yeah, somebody did take the White Russian recipe away. But have you all ever heard of the Choluteca Bridge in Honduras? Does that ring a bell with you?
Mm-mm.
Not
Okay.
even.
So
not even a chime.
I don't know anybody in Honduras that's a dentist, but this is one of my favorite stories ever. So in 1996, the Hondurans had been having trouble with flooding and with rains, and they had this grand idea that they were going to build this bridge to span this river, and it would solve a huge transportation problem in Honduras. So they commissioned this Japanese company, and the Japanese company came in, and they took 2 years and they built this absolutely beautiful bridge, right? And unfortunately, by the time that the bridge was built, they had extensive rains and extensive flooding. And if you look up the Choluteca Bridge, by the time the bridge was built, the river redirected and the bridge just went over dry land. So it's the bridge to nowhere. It's this beautiful bridge. And so the Japanese company came in, they did their job, they built this bridge, but the river adapted and they didn't build to adaptation. And so the reason that I share that story is because I think of that every time that I think of this one wonderful patient that I had that went out of the country and got all of this dental work done and came back to my office just like a kid in a candy store, so proud of the work that they had done outside of the country. And the dentist built this humongous bridge. Like, the treatment plan that I gave this patient was basically like, you probably need to go to a prosthodontist because this is a very, very difficult case. Well, patient went to Mexico, came back. The dental work, I'm not going to lie, it looks beautiful. However, after about 3 weeks, one tooth broke, the next tooth broke, and over the next 3 years, we redid every single thing that was done in Mexico because they didn't build to adaptation. They didn't know the patient. They took a static image in time. They solved a problem. They fixed it. and it was a situational success. And then the patient realized real quickly that for all of the problems that they were having after the fact, they couldn't go back for repeat and routine dental care. Not that that person was not offering it, because I'm sure it would have been offered and I'm sure the work would have been warranted, but it got to be too costly for the patient to go back. So my point is that patients, we don't want to be your one-stop dental shop. We want to be your dental care family. And that's what you get in the United States. We want to start with you. We want to finish with you. We want to care for you. And if geographically or personality wise, or there's a number of reasons that you need to change, we want to be able to pass that torch to somebody else with great, reassurance on our end that what we did was the best, and reassurance that what you're getting in the next stop is going to be the best as well. And so, I'm not saying that you're going to get horrible dental care outside of the United States, because you may get great dental care, but you always need to think that your mouth is going to change, and we're here to be there with you for the change, and we're here to plan for the change, and we're here to treat the change, and we're here to treat you for long term. And it's not just, once again, it's not a one-stop shop. It's, we want to be your dental care family for a long time. And so there's a lot that you need to take into consideration when you decide to go outside of the country. And unfortunately, cost is not the only thing that you need to take into consideration. So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys for any other closing comments.
JB?
Well, all I was going to say with all of that is that your teeth, your mouth, your oral health is not your hair. It's not or your fingernails, although you can get a nasty fungal infection if done correctly, okay? Right? Okay.
Sure, yeah.
But
or a car. Quit comparing us to your car.
Your mouth, and if you stick with us long enough, you'll learn from Jeff quite well. Your mouth is a part of your health. And in fact, I just reported last week about how the connection of your oral bacteria and your gut bacteria are linked together and will often predict your good oral health. My point is,
next time we do a consumer facing, I'm going to talk. Jenny is now making her own kefir.
Yes, I love it. And I make ginger beer, which is very similar. Anyway, my point is that, and Chad really highlighted that, like putting a bow on poop, if you will, which is veneering and making things look really great without understanding systemic and oral health, without understanding function, without understanding sleep, without understanding anything else about the patient other than the fact that they don't like the way their teeth look, means that you often will set a patient up for a very similar outcome to what Chad experienced. So if consumers learn nothing from this episode, other than the fact that your mouth, teeth included, are very much designed as part of your overall systemic health, and treating them as such so that, if you want to make them look prettier, that all works and plays well within the paradigm of your overall health, then typically these things can be well negotiated. Jeff, any closing remarks?
Yeah. For me, you know where I'm going to go with this.
Let's do it.
It's all about function. What takes dentistry down more often than not is not bad materials. It's not bad laboratories. It's not bad dentists. It's not bad technique. Okay. Sometimes in rare occasions, it can be
It
one
is
of
bad.
those.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
For the most part, what takes dentistry down is inattention to what's happening as people chew throughout the day. What happens when people sleep and they clench their teeth? What happens when they grind their teeth? But, what happens if the bite is just slightly off and the muscles go into spasm? I don't want to get too deep into this, but that is what more often than not takes down really, really good dentistry. And I mean for masters at our art and
Absolutely.
science, right? Is just something that we missed in function.
Yeah.
So my charge to all of you as consumers is just find somebody that looks at all of you, as JB said. Find somebody that's not just talking to the fix. You can go abroad and just get the fix. You can find someone in America who will just offer you the fix. Find somebody who has the education. Don't be afraid to ask about that. Find somebody who has the experience. Don't be afraid to ask about that. And don't just take advertisement as as the justification to say this person is great because I saw their ad somewhere. Find out about the practitioners that you're going to. Find out about what their philosophy is. How will they back up the work? What are their ideas on long term, and what kind of maintenance they expect? And then, quite frankly, ask them what they expect of you. That will go such a long way, because we both have a role in long-term health. It's not just what we offer you, but it's how it's also cared for. And, you know, just like we don't want to be the scapegoat, we certainly don't want to make you the scapegoat and say, okay, this is all on you now, right? Just be comfortable with the person you choose. Look into education, look into philosophy, and like the person. Just feel like there's someone that wants to do good. But I can assure you that there's a lot of amazing dentists here that are in it for the long haul for their patients, just as JB said earlier. And there's a lot more to it than just the quick fix.
It's a fantastic close and opens up so many doors for conversation.
Chad, you want to close us out?
I did.
No, thank you.
Pass.
Yeah.
Hey, folks.
I already did.
Just a final closing remark is just, do your research. We're not gonna, banish you or admonish you for going elsewhere for dental care, because, we're all consumers too. We're dentists, but we're consumers too. But do your research, make sure that you understand what you're getting into, and think about the long term versus the short term. And the biggest 3 words that we need to always look into is continuity of care. And so, with that being said, I think it was a great episode. I hope everybody has a wonderful evening, and follow us, social media, Facebook, Instagram, podcast, wherever you receive them, YouTube. We'd love to hear more from you. Dentist in the Know. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
See you soon. Good night, everyone.
Good night.